Welcome to another video on game development with Asha Akanksha Foundation. In this video, we are going to script out a small tic-tac-toe to make sure that when a player completes a single tic-tac-toe row, column or diagonal, we indicate in the game that that player has won that component. Now it's time to add some tic-tac-toe logic to the game. So we want to make sure that when there is a straight line that fills the tic-tac-toe, for example, if we get 3 consecutive crosses in the diagonal, this whole component turns into a big cross. So that's what we want. Let's get started on that. So firstly, in the script, we have the cell controller. And in the cell controller, what we want is we want to send a signal to the parent of this cell regarding the clicking of this cell. So we want to notify this tic-tac-toe one that square one was clicked. So for that, square one needs to have information about the parent, and for that, what we'll do is we will create a public game object parent, and here in the parent, we're going to first open the prefab. Right. So open the tic-tac-toe prefab, and here inside every square, we have this non-parent game object, and we'll drag the main object into this parent. So that's all we need to do. And that's the last one. So once this is done, every square is aware about who the parent of that square is. So for example, for tic-tac-toe 3, we can see the square 4 knows that the parent is tic-tac-toe 3. So that's done for all squares because we have created a prefab. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use this parent object and notify this parent about this cell being clicked. So in the parent is going to have the tic-tac-toe main controller. So here in the cell clicked, right now this is being called by the cell. But now what we're going to do is we are also going to add, so this is the main controller which is set on this main tic-tac-toe, and this tracks over whose turn it is. But we want to create a script for these smaller tic-tac-toes as well. And for that, we'll go to the scripts and create a C# script, tic-tac-toe small controller. So here we're going to add a function for cell clicked, and we are going to add the name of the cell as the parameter. So we want a string name. So for example, square 2 will pass in square 2 as a parameter. So now what we want to do is we want to have a two-dimensional array 3 cross 3 that will store the current state of the tic-tac-toe for this small tic-tac-toe. So for that we're going to create arrays. But first let's parse this name to figure out the cell number. So the name is going to be of the form square x. So we want the value of x. So that we can do by simply, so it's going to be square bracket x. So these are 8 digits. So we want the index 8 to be, and then we'll convert the index 8 to convert it to a number. So we want the index names 8th character, as in 0 indexed 8th character, and we want to convert it to an integer. So for that, we're just going to call a parse function, and that's going to be int.parse, and this will simply convert the string number to an integer. So once we have x, we need to first create an array. So you create a 2D array in C# as follows. So if you want to create, so this is your matrix, and you want it to be 3 cross 3. So that's how you do it. And once you have the matrix, we're going to create basically update this matrix. So instead of int, we can keep it to be bool, because all we want in, I think we need int. So we need 3 states. One is empty, one is we have player 1 chosen, and the second is player 2 chosen. So we have 3 states. Initially we want all of these to be empty. Empty is going to be 3, in empty is going to be 0, and if player I updates, then we'll set the index to be set the number to be I. So we want initially matrix ij should be 0, and when we are saying cell clicked, we also need to get a reference of the tic tac toe main game to know the state, to know whose chance it is right now. So we're going to get it by just the similar way as in the cell. Sorry. So in the start, just give me a second. Yeah, so that's done, and we need to, in this case, we need to check whose chance it is. So that we already know, it is from game dot get component, sorry, game, so we already have the component. So right now what we're saving is the controller itself, and in the controller we have the state variable that is going to tell whose chance it is. So all we need to do is in the, so yeah, so the a row is going to be indexed by 3, and column is going to be index remainder 3. So that just means, so for example, if we are at um, row number 4, sorry, cell number 0 1 2 3 4. Yeah, so if we are at cell number 4, the row is going to be 4 divided by 3, which is 1, which is 0 comma 1. So here, and the cell is going to be 4 remainder 1, which is also 1. So first I'm going to decrement the index, because that is 1 indexed and we are talking about 0 index here. Now once we have the I and j, all we need to do is matrix ij is going to be game.state, whoever's chance it is. And once that is done, we are going to update the state. So we're going to call the cell clicked for the game as well. So here we're going to call the parent dot cell clicked, and with parameter game object dot name, and here we're going to call game dot cell clicked. So that's it. I don't think we need the game object here anymore. Or we did here. So let's keep it. So here we forgot to add new int. That should fix the error. This is on 16, right? So here also, this is something different in C#. In most languages, that's the way you use indices. Then we have another error at 30. Well, we do have line 30 here. Okay, so in the cell controller, we need to first fetch the parents component, the script component, which is tic tac small controller. Okay, and here itself, I think we did update this, right? Okay. Again, this should be public so that it's accessible to other classes as well. And the last error is we are using a character while it needs now here on 29. So we need to take a substring of name. We need length 1. Seems like perfect. So object reference is not set to an instance of an object. So we got that at cell controller 23, which is game. Okay, we deleted deleted that line from here. Forgot to undo that as well. So this line. We're still getting it now on 31. So the parent wasn't found, which is unusual because we have set it for each and every cell. And we're going to go back to square one. So it does have the parent, right? So I think we couldn't find the small controller script, which is correct because we haven't set the small controller script. So we'll open the prefab and add the the tic-tac-toe small controller. Yeah, no errors now. So now we can't see the 2D array getting updated right now, but we can surely add the logic to check if the whole array is up, the whole row or column gets updated by the same player, so that we can print if once one whole tic-tac-toe has been won by uh, player 1 or player 2. So for that, we are going to, so every time a cell is clicked, we are going to trigger the check function. So we don't need anyone else to access this function, so we're going to keep it private. We want a boolean function which will tell if some row or column has been completed, some row column diagonal has been completed. So that's going to be check completed. So now we're going to check for each row. So I'm going to break this logic up so that it's easy for you to understand. So here what we're doing is we are picking the ith row, and now we want to check that each of the three cells of the ith row have the same player. So for that we are going to check, basically here we're going to check that so for player I want to check that if matrix I comma 0 is equal to game dot state, basically the current player's chance, or matrix I comma and I want to check that all these three should be true. Matrix I comma 1 is also equal to game dot state, and matrix I comma 3 0 1 sorry 2 is also game dot state. In that case, the current player has completed the square, and we are going to make we're going to store a variable called, and I'm making it public so it's visible to us outside. So this is going to be a boolean variable, integer variable state, and it's going to be 0 initially. We're going to make it state the player state, whichever player has won this cell, won this small tic-tac-toe. And if state is not one, we are not also around, we won't even allow a cell to be clicked. So that is another check we'll add here. If state is not equal to 0, we just want to return. We don't want to do anything. We are also not going to, where were we? Yeah. So we are also not going to, I think we closed that script. Yeah, so we're not going to update the cell click. So that means that the chance of the player will also not be updated. In the cell controller, here we have, on click, we are just calling this cell click. So in case, so the chance won't be updated if the state is not 0. and we are still going. So the if player 1 clicked and the state was not 0, which is this cell, these cells, this subcomponent was already won by some player, we are not going to move to player 2. We are still going to keep player 1 to be playing. So that is fine. We update the state and then notify. Yeah. Okay. Now we are going to, yeah, so we checked for the rows. Now we're going to check for the columns. So if matrix 0 comma j is same as the game state, and matrix 1 comma j is also the game state, and matrix 2 comma j is also equal to the game state, then we are going to basically set the state to be game dot state. Again, do the same for the diagonals. So this we want k comma k. So this means 0 comma 0 cell, 1 comma 1 cell, and 2 comma 2 cell. So that forms the first diagonal. For people who are a little new to programming, this might seem uh, like a very complicated logic, but you will get you. So if you spend some time over it, you'll understand what we're trying to do here. For the second diagonal, for whoever is comfortable with programming, you might understand that you can fit these all in a single for loop. You don't need to have separate for loops for each of them, but just to make the process more clear and easy to understand and readable, this is how I am implementing it. So here we're going to have a tougher one. So we want that for 0th row we want 2 minus 0, which is so for the 0th row here, the cell we want to check is this one. So this is second, and for the first row first, for the second row we want 0th column. So that is going to be given by 2 minus k. So this should do it. And we want to add this check after we have updated the game state and before changing the state of the chance of the player to some other. So we're going to call the check completed function here. So we want to check if it is completed. So we will just simply print right now. So we'll just print the name of the player who has been able to complete. Let's try this out. Okay, we've got an errors at 68. Oh, seems like we missed a bracket. Okay, we need to return a value also. If we want to return game.state is not equal to 0. Now let's play and check it out. So here we got a null reference again. Let's see, this is at line 23 in the cell controller. How did this go away again? Didn't we just add it? So we got 1 printed, which means that it thought one cell was clicked. So here, let's check out the small controller. Let's print if the state was changed. So we want game state is not equal to 0 came to be true. So we'll check print the state. Oh, I think we did game.state by mistake. That's the issue. So yeah, the game.state is obviously 1. Also, we observe that even after clicking, these cells are being filled up, even though the click was not successful. So I think we should first return a bool here itself, and that returns false. Otherwise, we return true. So this just means that the cell was clicked or not. So here we are going to first uh, check this part. So if the click was successful, we are going to execute the below part. So if it was not successful, we just return. That's easier. And let's try it out. We still got a 1 here. So the state is really not 0. Let's let's check the initial value of the state. That was 0. the only places where the state is being updated, plus we also want to print I. Similarly here, here, and here. Oh wait, so here I see this is really messed up. I'm really sorry, but let me just give me a second. So we only want to check one diagonal. So firstly, we don't need a for loop, and that diagonal is basically 0, comma 0, 1, comma 1, and 2, comma 2. So we need to check eh, 3 diagonals, so that for loop is unnecessary. So 0, comma 2, 1, comma 1, 2, comma 0. Sorry, that was a very messed up mistake. Going back to Okay, great. So now the only problem is that we're updating the state before assigning the player. So we're going to first get the state int player is equal to game dot state current player, and if the current player is 1, yeah. So basically we don't want, so what was happening was that here the in the when we call the set clicked function, it's going to update the state first, and when we check the state has already changed, so that's why it was starting from a 0 instead of a 1, and now it's going to work fine. Yeah, so we got a cross first, then a cross circle, then again a cross, and player 1 has won this cell. So we finally coded out the small tic-tac-toe logic, and we are successfully able to identify when a player wins a component.